Good evening. I want you to hear me tonight, not just with your ears, but with your heart. Because somebody here has been waiting, praying, hoping, and now you feel like you're stuck. You feel like your blessing is delayed. But let me tell you something. When God is about to give you something big, He sends signs. He doesn't just drop it in your lap without preparation. He gets you ready. And if you're paying attention, you'll see the signs. You start noticing things changing around you, sometimes in ways that don't make sense at first. People who were once close start drifting away. Relationships you thought would last a lifetime suddenly feel distant or strained. Maybe opportunities you relied on start disappearing, and doors you once walked through with ease are now shut tight. It feels unsettling, even frustrating, but don't be discouraged. This is not a loss, it's a transition. When God is about to elevate you, He removes anything that can go with you to the next level. Some friendships, habits, and situations were only meant for a season, not a lifetime. And if you're paying attention, you realize that some of these shifts aren't random at all. They're necessary. You may feel tempted to hold on, to resist the change, but understand this: what's leaving your life is making room for something greater. The discomfort you feel is growth in motion. What seems like rejection is actually redirection. The people who walk away, the plans that fall through, the unexpected shifts, they're not happening to you, they're happening for you. Instead of mourning what's lost, embrace what's coming. Because when your surroundings start shifting, it's a sure sign that God is setting you up for something bigger than you ever imagined. You've been working hard, praying, believing, and yet the doors you expected to open remain shut. Opportunities you thought were meant for you slip through your fingers. No matter how much effort you put in, progress feels slow, and you start questioning whether you're even on the right path. But hear me, delays are not denials. They are divine preparations. When a door closes, it doesn't mean the blessing isn't coming. It simply means the timing isn't right yet. God doesn't just give you something, He prepares you for it. If you receive a blessing too soon, before you're ready, you might mishandle it. That delay is making sure you have the strength, wisdom, and character to carry the weight of what's coming. Think about a caterpillar inside a cocoon. It's not being punished, it's transforming. If it were to break free too soon, its wings wouldn't be strong enough to fly. The same applies to you. Sometimes God keeps you in a waiting season to develop your patience, discipline, and faith. He's making sure that when the blessing comes, you will be able to sustain it, not just experience it temporarily. Instead of feeling discouraged by delays, trust that they are working in your favor. Every closed door is either protecting you from something that's not meant for you or redirecting you towards something greater. Keep pushing forward. Stay faithful. Because when the time is right, the door that God opens for you will be so much bigger than the one you are knocking on. There comes a time in life when you feel stuck, lost, and uncertain. A time when everything around you seems to stand still, and no matter how hard you push, nothing seems to move. You pray, but the answers don't come. You try, but the results don't show. It feels like you're walking through a dry, empty desert with no end in sight. This is what's called the wilderness season, a period of testing, transformation, and preparation before a major breakthrough. The wilderness is not a punishment, it's a process. If you look at some of the greatest stories of faith, you'll see that before every promise, there was a season of wandering. Before the victory, there was a battle. Before the blessing, there was a test. And the wilderness is that test. It's a place where you are stripped of comfort, where the things you once depended on no longer work, and where your only option is to trust God. During this season, you may feel like you're walking in circles, repeating the same struggles over and over again. You may wonder why doors keep closing, why opportunities slip away, why the people you once leaned on have disappeared. It can feel lonely. It can feel frustrating, but let me tell you something. This season is not meant to break you, it's meant to shape you. In the wilderness, you learn resilience. You learn how to stand firm even when everything in you wants to give up. You learn patience because you can't rush God's timing. You learn faith because when everything else is uncertain, you realize that trusting in Him is the only certainty you need. Think about a seed buried in the ground. In the darkness, it looks like nothing is happening. But deep beneath the surface, roots are growing, foundations are forming. The seed isn't dead, it's preparing for something greater. And when the time is right, it breaks through the soil and begins to flourish. That's exactly what's happening in your life. The wilderness season is temporary, but the growth that comes from it is permanent. Every struggle is teaching you something. Every setback is building your strength. Every delay is aligning you with something better. When God finally brings you out of this season, you won't just survive, you'll thrive. You won't just walk into your blessing, you'll be ready for it. So don't despise the wilderness. Don't let frustration make you quit too soon. Hold on. Because on the other side of this dry season is a land flowing with everything you've been praying for. The breakthrough is coming. And when it does, you look back and realize that the wilderness wasn't a waste. It was the place where you became who you were always meant to be. There comes a point in life when no matter how much you plan, how hard you try, or how much effort you put in, things just don't go the way you expected. The path you mapped out so carefully suddenly shifts beneath your feet. The job you thought was secure disappears. The relationship you thought would last forever starts falling apart. The opportunities you worked for slip through your fingers. And in those moments, frustration sets in, confusion takes over, and fear starts whispering, "Why is this happening? Why can't I fix this?" But what if I told you that losing control is not a sign of failure, but a sign that God is taking over? See, we like to be in control. We like to have everything planned out, to know exactly what's coming next. But faith doesn't work like that. Faith is not about having all the answers. It's about trusting the one who does. And sometimes God will allow things to spiral out of your control, not to punish you, but to position you. Not to break you, but to build you. Think about being in a boat out in the middle of a storm. If you try to steer against the wind, you'll exhaust yourself. You'll fight, you'll struggle, but you won't make any progress. But the moment you let go, the moment you trust the wind to guide you, that's when the journey changes. And that's what God is asking you to do. When you start losing control, it's because God is asking you to surrender. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving over. It means recognizing that your hands were never meant to carry everything on their own, that your strength was never meant to be the only source of power in your life, that some battles are not meant to be fought by you alone. Look at the times in your life when things didn't go according to plan. Weren't those the moments that taught you the most? The moments that shaped you, stretched you, deepened your faith? When you lose control, God is saying, "Let me handle this." Maybe He's closing a door because He knows it's not the right one for you. Maybe He's allowing the delay because you're not ready yet. Maybe He's moving things out of your life because He has something greater in store. You don't always see it in the moment, but when you look back, you'll realize what felt like a setback was actually a setup. Let go of the need to understand everything. Let go of the need to fix everything. Stop trying to carry what God never asked you to hold. The moment you stop resisting, the moment you surrender, that's when you'll feel peace like never before. Because you are never meant to be in control. He was. So if you feel like everything is slipping through your hands right now, don't panic, praise, because it means God is stepping in. It means He's rearranging things for your good. It means He's getting ready to take you to a place you couldn't have reached on your own. The moment you let go is the moment you rise. There comes a time in life when deep inside you feel something shifting. You can't explain it, but it's there. A quiet stirring, a sense of urgency, a feeling that you were meant for more. Even when everything around you seems the same, something within you is changing. You feel restless, uneasy, almost as if your spirit knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. This isn't random, it's divine preparation. Inner restlessness is one of the clearest signs that something greater is coming. It's that feeling that wakes you up at night, that makes you question the routine you once felt comfortable in, that whispers, "Woo, there's more for you." And when you feel this, you need to pay attention. This restlessness isn't about dissatisfaction. It's about transformation. It's not about being unhappy with where you are. It's about recognizing that you are outgrowing your current season. Just like a bird knows when it's time to leave the nest, your spirit knows when it's time for elevation. But here's the challenge. Growth is uncomfortable. When God is about to take you higher, He starts shaking up everything familiar. Things that once excited you no longer bring joy. People you used to connect with don't seem to understand you anymore. The places and patterns that once felt safe now feel restricting. And in that discomfort, you have two choices. stay where you are and ignore the call, or step out in faith and embrace what's next. Many people feel this restlessness but fight it. They convince themselves to stay in the same job, the same environment, the same mindset because it's easier, because it's comfortable. But comfort is the enemy of growth. You cannot step into the next level while clinging to the last one. Think about a snake shedding its skin. It doesn't do it because it wants to. It does it because it has to. If it doesn't shed the old skin, it won't have room to grow. The same is true for you. That restlessness inside of you, it's telling you that the time has come to shed the old and step into the new. You might not have all the answers. You might not see the full picture. But when you feel that stirring inside of you, trust it. That's God nudging you, telling you that something is shifting in your favor. He is preparing you for something bigger, something better, something beyond what you thought was possible. Don't resist the feeling, don't ignore it, lean into it, pray about it, seek wisdom, take action. Because when you start feeling that deep inner restlessness, it's a sure sign that your breakthrough is near. Something greater is coming and you were born to step into it. There comes a moment in every great journey when the battles become fiercer, the challenges become tougher, and the obstacles seem relentless. Just when you start to see progress, something happens to push you back. Just when you feel like a breakthrough is near, a storm rises up against you. This is not a coincidence. This is confirmation. Whenever something big is about to happen in your life, opposition increases. The struggles, the setbacks, the sudden difficulties, they are not signs that you're failing, they are signs that you're on the verge of victory. The enemy does not attack what is invaluable. The attack is proof that what's ahead is worth fighting for. Think about a soldier on a battlefield. If they're walking through open land and there's no resistance, it means they're either moving in the wrong direction or they're not close to the target. But the moment they get near enemy territory, the moment they get closer to the objective, that's when the battle intensifies. And the same is true in life. The closer you get to your purpose, the harder the opposition fights to keep you from it. Maybe you've noticed this in your own life. Right when you decide to step into something new, pursue a dream, start a business, deepen your faith, or change your life, things suddenly start going wrong. Relationships get tested, unexpected challenges arise, doubt creeps in, and you start wondering, why is everything falling apart? But listen to me, it's not falling apart, it's falling into place. The resistance you're facing is a sign that the enemy is afraid of what you're about to step into. Throughout history, every great breakthrough was preceded by intense struggle. Before every major victory, there was a battle. Before every success story, there were countless moments where quitting seemed like the only option. But the difference between those who made it and those who didn't is, if you are facing opposition, it means you are stepping into something powerful. It means you are on the right track. It means that what's ahead of you is so great, so significant, that forces are trying to stop you from reaching it. But here's the truth. The enemy can't stop what God has ordained. He can throw distractions, delays, and discouragement your way, but he cannot take away what is meant for you. The only way he wins is if you give up. So when the opposition increases, don't retreat. Press forward. When the battle gets harder, don't back down, stand firm. Because the very thing trying to break you is actually the thing confirming that you're about to break through. Your victory is closer than you think. The fight almost gets hardest right before the finish line. Don't quit now, you're almost there. Sometimes when we pray for a breakthrough, we expect it to come in a certain way. We envision the perfect opportunity, the ideal moment, and the exact path that will lead us to success. But what happens when the blessing comes from a direction we never considered? What happens when the door that opens doesn't look like the one we were knocking on? God's blessings often come in unexpected ways. Maybe you've been waiting for a promotion and instead you lose your job. Maybe you were expecting a specific opportunity but instead something completely different appears. At first it may seem like a disappointment, but what if it's actually a divine setup? God doesn't always work the way we expect. He is not limited by our understanding. In fact, some of the greatest blessings in life come disguised as something unfamiliar or even uncomfortable. What looks like a detour might actually be the direct route to where you're meant to be. Think about how often in history the greatest opportunities came from unexpected places. Some of the most successful people didn't plan their success. It came through a door they never thought to knock on. Some of the biggest life changes didn't happen because everything went smoothly, but because something unexpected forced them to move in a different direction. And that's how God works. Maybe you've been looking in one direction, but God is calling you to turn your head. Maybe you've been praying for one thing, but He's preparing something better. Maybe the answer to your prayers is already in front of you, but because it doesn't look like what you expected, you don't recognize it. When unusual opportunities start appearing, don't dismiss them. They may not fit your plan, but they fit God's plan. They may not look like what you wanted, but they are exactly what you need. That conversation with a stranger, that unexpected job offer, that invitation you weren't planning on accepting, pay attention. God works through people, through connections, through circumstances that seem random but are actually divinely orchestrated. Look at it this way. If you order a package, you don't control which delivery truck brings it to your door. You just trust that it will arrive. In the same way, God's blessings will come, but they may not always arrive in the packaging you expected. So when something unusual comes your way, don't be quick to reject it. Pray about it. Stay open, because what may seem small, different, or even confusing could be the very thing that changes your life. There will come a time in your journey when everything seems uncertain. The path ahead isn't clear, the answers you've been waiting for aren't coming, and the things you used to rely on no longer seem stable. It feels like you're walking through a thick fog, trying to move forward but unable to see what's next. You start to question, did I hear God right? Am I on the right path? Is this even worth it? This is the testing of your faith. Faith is easy when everything is going right. It's easy to believe when doors are opening, when prayers are being answered, and when things make sense. But real faith is tested in uncertainty. Real faith is believing when you can't see. It's trusting when you don't understand. It's standing firm when everything around you is shaking. Think about the moment when a bird takes its first flight. It stands on the edge of the nest, looking down at the unknown. It has never flown before, never felt the air carry its wings, but at some point, it must make a choice. Stay in the nest or take the leap. And the moment it jumps, it realizes something powerful. The wind was there all along, waiting to carry it. That's how faith works. God is asking you to step out even when you don't see the ground beneath you. He is asking you to trust Him even when everything inside you wants to turn back. Because faith is not about having all the answers, it's about believing that God already does. Look at the great stories of faith. Every one of them involved uncertainty. No one saw the full picture when they were asked to step forward. They had doubts, they had fears, but they walked anyway. And because they did, they stepped into blessings greater than they ever imagined. But here's the truth. Faith without testing isn't real faith. If you never had to trust beyond what you can see, you would never grow. If everything was always easy, you wouldn't develop strength. God allows faith to be tested not to weaken you, but to build you. Maybe right now you feel like you're walking blindly. Maybe you're waiting for a sign, for proof, for something solid to hold on to. But faith doesn't work that way. Faith is stepping before you see the mirror. Faith is walking before the door opens. Faith is trusting that even in silence, God is working. So, if your faith is being tested, don't give up. Keep walking, keep believing, keep trusting. Because on the other side of this test is a testimony. On the other side of this uncertainty is breakthrough. God didn't bring you this far to leave you. He's not asking you to figure everything out. He's asking you to trust that He already has. There are moments in life when you're unsure about the path ahead. You've been praying, seeking answers, wondering if you're making the right decision. The doubts creep in. Is this really meant for me? Am I heading in the right direction? What if I'm making a mistake? Then suddenly out of nowhere, you start receiving signs, messages, moments, and encounters that seem too perfectly timed to be coincidences. These are not random. They are divine confirmations. God speaks in many ways, and when you're stepping into something big, He often sends unexpected confirmations to reinforce your direction. Maybe it's a conversation with a stranger who unknowingly gives you the exact encouragement you needed to hear. Maybe it's a sermon, a quote, or a passage in a book that speaks directly to your situation. Maybe it's a door that opens at the perfect moment when you are ready to give up. These signs are God's way of saying, keep going, I'm with you. But here's the thing. You have to be paying attention. God is always speaking, but if you're too caught up in worry or too focused on forcing things to happen your way, you might miss the confirmation when it comes. Sometimes we expect God's signs to be grand and obvious, but often they come in subtle, quiet ways. A feeling of peace in your heart, an opportunity you never expected, or a gentle nudge in the right direction. Think about how navigation works. When you enter a destination into a GPS, it doesn't give you the entire journey at once. It gives you one step at a time, and when you make the right turn, it confirms, continue on this road. God works the same way. He may not give you all the answers up front, but He will send confirmation along the way, reminding you that you are on the right path. Sometimes confirmation comes through alignment. Suddenly, the right people start showing up in your life. Resources you didn't have before start appearing. A way is made where there was no way. These are not coincidences. This is divine orchestration. When something is truly meant for you, God will send signs to reinforce it, even when the journey is challenging. But confirmation isn't always about open doors. Sometimes God confirms your path by closing the wrong ones. If you keep hitting roadblocks, if something isn't working, no matter how hard you try, that may be a sign too. Rejection is often God's way of redirecting you towards something greater. What looks like a setback might actually be divine protection. So if you've been feeling unsure, wondering if you're heading in the right direction, pay attention. The signs are there. The confirmation will come. Maybe not in the way you expect, but exactly in the way you need. And when you receive that confirmation, don't hesitate. Move forward with confidence, knowing that what's ahead of you is not just by chance. It's part of God's perfect plan. There comes a time in life when deep within your spirit, you sense that something is changing. You can't always explain it, but you feel it. The things that once excited you don't hold the same weight anymore. The relationships that once fit so perfectly now feel out of alignment. The routines that used to bring you comfort now feel restrictive. It's as if the very core of who you are is shifting, preparing you for something greater. This is not an accident. This is a spiritual shift. A spiritual shift is a deep, undeniable sense that your season is changing. It's when your spirit starts moving before your circumstances do. It's when you feel God calling you to something new, even before you see the evidence of it. And in these moments, you have two choices. Resist the shift and stay where you are, or embrace the change and step into what's next. When God is shifting you, He will often start by changing your desires. Suddenly, the things that once brought you joy no longer satisfy you. You start craving more, not material things, but growth, purpose, meaning. You feel an urgency in your spirit, a pull towards something bigger, something deeper. You might not have all the details, but you know without a doubt that you can't stay the same. This shift can feel unsettling because with change comes uncertainty. You may feel restless, confused, or even isolated. Some people around you may not understand what you're going through. They may question why you're thinking differently, why you no longer want what you used to want. But don't be discouraged. Not everyone is meant to go where you're going. Think of a caterpillar before it becomes a butterfly. It spends its whole life crawling on the ground, used to a certain way of moving, a certain way of existing. Then suddenly everything changes. It enters a cocoon, a place of stillness, a place of transformation. It might feel like everything is falling apart, but in reality it's being prepared for a completely new way of life. That's what a spiritual shift feels like. God will often allow discomfort before elevation. He will make it impossible for you to stay where you are because He knows that if you remain the same, you'll never grow into who you're meant to be. And when this shift happens, the worst thing you can do is hold on to the old season when God is calling you into a new one. Some doors will close, some relationships will fade, some opportunities will pass you by. But don't chase what God is removing. Trust that if He is shifting you, it's because He is preparing something greater. So if you feel this deep inner knowing, this spiritual restlessness, don't ignore it. Lean into it, pray about it, seek wisdom, take the steps even when you don't see the full path ahead. Because a shift in your spirit is not random. It's a sign that God is moving. Your season is changing. The only question is, are you ready to step into it? When God is about to give you something big, He doesn't just drop it into your hands. He prepares you for it. He shifts your surroundings, tests your faith, and challenges you to grow. He removes what no longer serves you and aligns you with something greater. The process may not always be easy, but the promise is always worth it. So when you start seeing these signs, when the doors close, when the battles increase, when the restlessness stirs in your spirit, don't be afraid. It's not a sign to give up, it's a sign to press forward. It's proof that you are on the verge of something greater than you can imagine. Trust the process, stay faithful, keep moving. Because when God is preparing you for something big, it's not just about receiving a blessing, it's about becoming the person who is ready to handle it. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. Stay ready, your time is coming.